that's very important for all the employees. And Ryan's going to take it away with the next section.
All right, guys. My name is Ryan. I'm senior business management major. I'm going to be talking to you about recruitment, hiring, and firing policies. And the main goal of these policies is to find qualified employees, is to attract them to the company, employing them strategically in the organization, and keeping employees around for the long haul. Recruitment policy. Why do you need one? You need one so the candidates are assessed against the same selection criteria. It's just so the recruitment is lawful. It's a genuine job offer. You also need a recruitment policy so the job descriptions meet the business requirements. A recruitment policy provides consistency. Managers use predetermined criteria at all stages of the policy. A recruitment policy reduces the risk of bias and discrimination, just to make sure all candidates are selected against the same criteria. A good recruitment policy should be based on the principles such as respect for diversity, ethical decision making, selection according to merit, equal treatment, and procedural fairness. Recruitment policy at big companies, step by step. First, your resume would go through the human resource evaluation, and usually it'll just get sent through a computer, more than 20 seconds looking for keywords. Then you'll go on to a phone interview, your first interview, second interview, and a decision and a job offer. This is one that surprised me, is that social media for recruiting is more popular than ever. The percentage is what got me. 92% of companies use platforms such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. 45% of Fortune 500 companies include links to social media on their career page selection. Social media is just a good way for employers to market themselves. Now I'm going to talk about the hiring process. The hiring process for most organizations encompasses multiple steps and practices, including application forms, interviews, pre-employment testing, reference and background checks, and employment offers. This was a funny thing I found coming through my pictures, and it led me to the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. It states that pregnant women must be treated in the same manner as anyone else. They cannot refuse to hire them. And I'm going to ask a question. Do you need a reason to be fired? Does anybody know? No, you don't, because most states are at-will states, and this means that an employer can fire an employee at any time for any reason as long as it doesn't violate the law, such as discrimination, public policy. A wrongful termination involves firing an employee for reasons such as retaliation, discrimination, or illegal acts. A wrongful termination can lead to expensive lawsuits and unemployment compensation by a case-by-case basis. Part of the firing policy should include reasons for termination such as incompetence, sexual harassment, verbal abuse, repeated unexcused latenesses or absences, physical violence, and theft from the company, or drug or alcohol abuse. Under federal law, it is illegal for employers to fire an employee because of the employee's race, gender, national origin, disability, religion, or age. Each state may include more or less in their state policies, because I know it changes from state to state. Under the Federal Employee Polygraph Act, employers are not allowed to fire employees on the basis that they refuse to take a lie detector test. So if you're ever asked to take a lie detector test, you don't have to. I'm just going to wrap up here, and the main purpose of these policies is to effectively find qualified employees, attract them to the company, employ them strategically, and keep them for the long haul. Thank you.
Alright, what's up everybody? Topic under policies that I chose to cover was discrimination and the policies protecting each person under each type of discrimination. In every company, there's many different types of people, many different ways to discriminate, and thus bringing many different policies to protect these people. Job security within a company is a big thing, and people don't want to be scared to lose their job because they're different or anything. So adding these policies reassures them that they won't lose their job. Discrimination is described as the unjust or prejudiced treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, sex, or disability. Those are just a couple. There are many different varieties of discrimination in the workplace that people can discriminate against. But according to the workplace, some of the more common discriminations you see are discrimination against those who are disabled, discrimination by sex, so male, female, discrimination of race, discrimination between religions, and of sexual orientation. Disability discrimination occurs when an employer treats a qualified individual with a disability or an applicant unfavorably because he or she is disabled. Harassment can include offensive remarks about the disability or remarks about them not being able to produce the job correctly. To protect them, the Americans with Disability Act, signed in 1990, makes it unlawful to discriminate against a qualified individual with a disability. The ADA outlaws discrimination against individuals with disabilities in state jobs, government services, transportation, and telecommunication jobs. In today's world, as we know, I'm sure we all have jobs where we're about the same amount of male and female. That was not the case 50, 60 years ago when more males were in the workplace. So they're passing policies to catch up to this. Sexual discrimination is when one sex is being treated differently than the other. Sexual discrimination can be described as discrimination in employment and opportunity against a person, which 9 times out of 10 it is male to female, on the grounds of sex. In most workplaces, all the discrimination problems, this tends to be one of the more prominent problems. In the workplace, one of the most obvious forms of sexual discrimination is the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is the discrepancy of pay between a male and a female. One statistic I found interesting when doing this was up until the age of 35, women make up to 90% of what a male makes. Now after that, the median pay for a woman drops down to 79% of what a man is making. So 79 cents for every dollar that a man makes. Both are equally qualified, same background, same ability to do the job, but the male always makes more money. Now while it's only a 21% difference, let me put it in perspective for you. So if a male's making $20 and a woman's making $15.80, over the course of 1 year, the male will make $41,600 compared to the woman who is making $32,864, a difference of almost $9,000 a year. Same qualifications, just different sex. The good news is that there are several big businesses taking the Equal Pay Pledge. This pledge ensures fair pay to all Americans, and by doing that, it helps the business attract top-tier talent. Not only narrowing the gender gap, but boosting the economy because it is attracting some of the best people fit for that job. As you see here, Spotify, Johnson & Johnson, American Airlines.
Shake.
Those 3 companies are some of the companies that did the pledge. Another discrimination in the workplace that negatively affects a business is racial discrimination. Racial discrimination describes the practice of treating individuals differently because of their race or the color of their skin. Although it may be difficult to see at times, this is still evident in the workplace. Racial discrimination in the workplace can be not hiring an applicant for a position even though they're qualified just because of the color of their skin. Another form of discrimination is excluding a fellow associate because of the color of their skin in work activities. To protect any individual that may be discriminated against, there are 2 federal laws set in place that carry over into the business world. Title 12 of the Civil Rights Act applies to employers having at least 15 workers. It states that race-based discrimination is unlawful. Another law protecting employees is Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act. While discrimination is almost inevitable in every business, it's good to know that some companies have every policy intact to protect each one of their workers. This assures that everyone has an equal chance to be what they want to be and to work at the fullest of their potential without being discriminated against by coworkers. Now I'm going to pass it over to Dante. He's going to talk to you about safety in the workplace.
Okay, hi, I'm Dante Pinkney, and I'll be talking to you about health and safety policies in the workplace. And this is basically policies that explain how to manage safety and how to protect staff and members of the general public and members of the public that might be entering a business. Okay. Workplaces are required to provide healthy and safe environments for employees, for visitors, and for guests. Most workplaces are required to have a health and safety policy intact, and they're also required to implement them and encourage other employees and people that come into their place of business to follow them. No matter what sort of business you're running, there's always a possibility of being injured. As you can see, this man works in a pet store, and it looks like he was bitten by a fish, and that's a low-risk injury, but still may happen. Okay, so these types of policies include matters of hazardous substances, electrical safety, accident prevention and accident reporting, fire safety, first aid, manual handling, work equipment, and other workplace issues. Okay, there are legal obligations that do go with health and safety. In 1974, the Health and Safety at Work Act was put in place, and it states that you must prepare your own statement of some sort, and you must bring it to the attention of your employees as much as possible. And after that point, it is the responsibility of the employees to follow that. Okay, and there are employer responsibilities as well. There are specific safety issues that employers have to worry about, like properly maintaining their floors and their working equipment. As you can see in this picture, the floors aren't kept too clean, and it's a possible tripping hazard. And the policies will be different in each different working environment or type of work. Like here, it's a food factory, and you can see that their policy is to wear protective equipment, like face mask or like coats or whatever they're wearing here. And then a truck driver would be required to wear a seatbelt, or he wouldn't be allowed to have any passengers. And then construction, there are more people injured and killed each year than any other sector. They are required to have more specific safety rules. Like this guy is not wearing a harness, and they have a rule that if you're above 6 feet, you should be wearing a harness. And hospitals are also very hazardous places of work. Nurses have very unique challenges dealing with sick patients, and you can see in this picture the nurse is taking blood with gloves on to protect herself or himself from immediate contact with blood. And here you see a computer laborer or a computer technician, and you would think it's a lower risk type of work, but accidents still could happen. These workers have very specific rules on electrical safety so that accidents do not happen, and if they do, they know how to fix them. Okay, and health and safety can affect businesses' ability to survive, and there are possibilities of having health and safety violations and also getting a bad reputation. Like if you go to a restaurant and you see a chef picking his nose, I'm sure you wouldn't give him good reviews. And here's OSHA, and OSHA stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and it is responsible for protecting the worker health and safety in the United States. And they basically come into workplaces and they look for violations, and any violations they find could result in fines and suspensions. And policy should include very specific rules and ways to deal with different types of injuries and illnesses. And so basically, if employers or if employees find things like sicknesses